Hi everyone, this is Bobby from bn-games.com with
Tim.
And we're here doing something we haven't done in a long time. Kind of podcasty, kind of I need my guitar cleaned and he's very good at it. If you need
this was all a ruse.
If you need guitar cleaning, polishing, he's the man for it. And we're gonna I'm gonna call this new series Midlife Retro. The idea being that, and to preface it, we're not at midlife quite yet.
Well,
but we're getting
depends
there.
On some factors. But...
Some factors. But we're getting there. And when you consider that some of my favorite games, some of his favorite games are 20 plus years old.
Well, older than that now.
Yeah, and in some cases even older, 30 potentially. We're getting there.
Well, I think some of my favorites also are even way further than that, because I know I like some stuff that's even older than what you like.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, it's definitely like that.
So, this is an experiment. We'll try it. If you guys like it, we can do more. Timmy's just going to polish, and we're going to bullshit about a topic. The topic I want to talk about today is one that's very relevant. I believe that cheap retro is dead. And I have a lot of evidence to support that claim. So I'm in a lot of Facebook groups for retro gaming. I'm in a lot of Reddit groups, that sort of thing. There's always an argument about what counts as retro, and we'll eventually get to that. In this, we'll probably talk about that maybe in another thing where, what constitutes as retro.
Also, kind of a argument on what constitutes retro.
Yeah. Like years and that sort of thing. Like, for example, we're not going to start on this, but in one particular Facebook group, I always hear people say that the PlayStation 2 is not retro.
I tend to agree with that. I still think the PS2 is still too new in that it's still so easy to get, and I don't know, I mean, being that, it's kind of like stores still really sell it. There's an abundance of it to be found and bought and everything like that. So there I do tend to agree that it is not quite there, I think, as a retro system.
See, I would actually disagree about that. I would say that it counts as retro because it's the last analog console, and that it didn't rely on the internet in an operating system. I mean, it had an operating system, but it didn't count on it, like it didn't rely on it. And
well, for that, I mean, I could say the same thing about the PS3. I mean, granted, there were online games, and you did have there were system updates, but it still wasn't reliant on it, like hardcore. Like, I could still get a PS3 that's not updated, pop a game in, and
that's true to an extent. But the PS2 is really, truly still analog. I mean...
No, yeah, I get that. I mean, if you want to go that route, I mean, there were, like the 64, it needed the jump pack upgrade for certain games.
But that doesn't... We're talking about analog versus...
Well...
It's another topic for another show. Because that one could get deep. But I want to talk about people claiming that... Well, not claiming. I want to talk about retro not being cheap anymore. So... What I think is the real killer in this day and age is that millennials, I hate to use that word, I really dislike being called a millennial overall, but it's true.
That's another topic for another day.
Yes, the group's known as millennials, so let's say 28 to 40. I'm not sure what the official dates are, but let's say 28 to 40.
Well, no, the official dates is, I think it's like 1981 to 2012 or something like that.
Okay.
We barely fall into that category that we shouldn't actually fall into.
I'm on the edge of Generation X.
Yeah, but you're still a millennial.
Yes, by like...
But then again, it's shifted like 6 times, so...
Well, anyway.
It's...
Point is, if you're within that age group, the problem is that a lot of people are lived long enough and worked long enough, they've gotten into higher parts of their careers at this point in their lives, myself included, and they have a little extra money. Not all of them, obviously, but some of them. And I'm not talking rich people. I'm not saying you have $1,000 billion. You know, you're not investment banker. I'm talking very strictly, you know, you have a little extra money to spend on your leisurely activities, and that's what I'm referring to. So that is the group I'm talking about. The problem that we're running into, I'll give you, I think where it really started to take off was with the NES Classic. I think the NES Classic really destroyed the retro market, because what ended up happening was you had a bunch of people buying these NES Classics going, oh my god, I love my childhood and the whole thing, and then you come to find out that, oh man, I you know, these games, I can buy them now, I have some money. And then they go up buying consoles and games and then starting getting into it, the hobby. And
well, I mean, I don't know if
that is what I've been seeing happen. You get a bunch of people going, oh, I just bought an NES for the first time in 20 years. And
I get part of that, but I also, the other part, the flip side of that I get is that I think they go into it, they buy something, and then they realize how hard everything is to set up and how certain games don't work with the like, you can't. One of the best games on the NES, which is not on the Classic, is Duck Hunt, because to make it work like it used to, you wouldn't be able to with the way TVs work nowadays. And it's kind of that thing. It's like, that was one of the things why I didn't buy one, even though now that they re-released it, I do plan on buying one. It's for that ease of access, and that's where old systems where you have to blow the cartridge and pop it in and slam it down, I don't know if that the NES really boosted that. I just think, especially for like, you know, like PS1 and stuff like that, you know, games get scratched, melted, burned, kids, and then 360s chew them up. I think that the scarcity aspect of it is kind of narrowing it down, and I think that's kind of what's jumping up the prices a bit.
Destruction and items becoming rare are a different part of it, but I see plenty of people who come into this who just bought these NES Classics, or at least researched them, said, oh, I forgot all about these things.
Well, I agree with that. I know, a matter of fact, I know someone who, after the NES Classic came out, he didn't buy one, but after that came out, it reminded him, like, he really loved Shinobi, and has been looking for a Genesis and the original one, but that game is so hard to find. And then, like, I think only one of the PS3, the Sonic Gem Collection, had it on there, but you have to play, like, 70 hours or something to unlock it.
Game Shark.
On the PS3?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said PS2.
No, it was the
the Genesis
All-Star
Collection.
Genesis or whatever.
No,
the millionth release.
I've seen a lot of people coming in and saying, oh, well, besides the NES Classic, even if they didn't purchase it, they start looking at alternatives. When you look up NES Classic on Google, you're inevitably going to come up to RetroPie. And if you don't know what RetroPie is, it's basically a Raspberry Pi, which is a little computer, and people emulate games on it. They create their own NES Classic, which, you know, if you look at what you get, what you pay for authentic Nintendo device versus what you can get with a RetroPie, you know, it's no brainer. RetroPie all the way, but that's also legal. And
actually, I read, because it's kind of topical, I read a very interesting article that kind of also plays into this, I think, this morning off Kotaku about how Nintendo is suing for the ROMs and stuff.
That's for the sites that are hosting them.
No, I know, but just in general, but it's kind of like there's a preservation aspect of it that a lot of these games are getting lost to time, and that kind of comes back to the, like what I said about, you know, copies getting lost that are not being, like, digital re-releases and stuff like that.
The problem with that is that you're talking about a site that is openly letting you download the
the
proof that you own the game, because you technically, for a lot of those consoles, can own the ROMs as long as you've dumped them from a cartridge that you purchased.
Yeah,
And all they're doing is hosting it, and most of the people who are using RetroPie, I'm sorry, did not purchase them, don't own them. They're either cheapskates or don't want to get into it, or there are a lot of reasons. I mean, I collect the real thing. You know, I'll put a shot of the room before I got this couch. and you can see what it looks like in here, kind of. It's always updating as I'm adding stuff, but still. It comes down to they didn't purchase it, and they don't own the rights legally. They didn't dump the ROMs themselves, and then they build these, retro pies, and then they get into it. But the problem is, I mean, even with those, people go, well, you know what? I want to get my favorite game. A real popular one on the Super Nintendo is Earthbound. Earthbound was an expensive cartridge even 10 years ago. I mean, even 10 years ago, it was like $100 cart, and today, without the box, without the manual. We're not talking about like the special big one that it came in, just, I think that's the only one that came in. But, without the manual, the case, the whole thing, even sometimes without the label, the original label on the cartridge, they still go for $150 to $200. People pay that. Another one that I own, I own Earthbound also, that I got for super cheap was Mega Man X3. That one was expensive before because of its limited run. It came out just at the end of the Super Nintendo era. They only made a certain amount of them, and I think most of them went to like Blockbusters. And I actually got one for $30 with a torn label, so I put a repo label on it. That game with a repo label still is like $250 card.
I would say if you want to go on the cheaper spectrum, was it Chrono Trigger? That one's usually what, like $95?
Yeah.
Out of the box?
Yeah.
Those, I've seen them go up to $400 in the box.
I mean, generally speaking, Nintendo first party usually holds up as far as prices. Now let's talk about ones that are not. Tronbonne, which is a PlayStation 1 game that I own.
I gotta say, that was one of my biggest disappointments. I mean, granted, the game wasn't that bad. It's terrible compared to the other two. But
it's not a good game for what I paid for.
It is not worth that. I get the scarcity in that of it upping the price, but I don't get the cult classic of it for.
It's just because of her.
Yeah, because Mega Man Legends is my favorite Mega Man. Hands down, I like that one the best. I mean, I even have a copy of Part 2 that he doesn't have. And
I need to. If you have a copy of 2. And don't want to try to rip me off.
And mine's even in the original case. I mean, I hunted that thing down.
I have one in Tronbonne.
Yeah, I have one. I want Tronbonne, but again, like I said, I want Tronbonne, but that's basically for the collection aspect. It's not for. I mean, it's not. I'm dying to play it. I mean, because you can get it. What is it? It's on
$5.
Yeah, from the PlayStation store. Yeah,
it's not a great game. But a good one of those, $350. If you go to a retro store, because retro stores always mark everything up. That's another thing we'll talk about.
I got an opinion.
$400, $500 in some cases. It's insane. A couple other ones that I found out very recently in my collection. I have Futurama for the PlayStation 2. I paid $10 for that a year ago. It goes for $150 now.
That's not that surprising with the cult following.
But yeah, I know. But I mean, this cult on top of people having money.
I mean, it drives
up the value.
I think eventually, and I mean, I could be wrong because I know how saturated it is, but I think eventually, like even Grand Theft Auto will get to that point because it's so many people spent so many hours and then.
There's so many copies of it. There's not.
No, I know, but yeah, I know, but a lot of them are with children and stuff like that ruin them.
It might eventually. Well, you're.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying like anytime soon, but I'm saying like way down the line. I think even Grand Theft Auto will end up being something like that because it has that following because it just was such a huge game.
Yeah, I'm talking about even like the next 10 years. Another PlayStation 2 game that I own is called Rule of Rose. It's a horror game that was banned in a couple of countries. And the American version will easily go for $300-$400 in great condition.
Speaking of banned games, how much does LSD go for?
$300-$400.
Yeah.
I have a Japanese version, and the cool thing about the Japanese version is it's the same as the American version, except it has Japanese subtitles. So it's the same game. That's why I picked it up. I got it for $60, and I was like, do I really want to spend $60 on this? And I've seen it on eBay now for $175, $200.
I will say, they did make an interesting video when we had done that live stream.
Well, we haven't done Wilma Gross.
No, I meant LSD.
Oh, LSD, yes. LSD is like one of the first games that, like, really just insane. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But point is, I have a lot of games in my collection that I've been looking up recently, and not just eBay. I mean, just when I go to retro shops, I go to a lot of retro shops. By the way, if you're hearing a fan right now, it's because we're in Southern California and it's still 90 degrees.
And half the state's on fire.
So I apologize for the audio to some extent. Yeah, half the state is on fire. But we have a lot of retro shops, and I've been to, I would at least say 80 to 90% of every retro shop, from San Diego, California, all the way up to Vancouver, Canada. I mean, I've been to a lot of retro stores, and you know, I know which ones are good and which ones are bad. And I the problem with retro stores is that everything they have costs more than you can get on eBay now. I understand they have to make a living. I completely get that, but at the same time, some of the markup is just beyond insane. Why would I go to a retro shop and pay 30% more markup off of eBay what I could just buy off of eBay? And some people would argue, oh, well, you know, you have it right there, and you know, you can test it and that sort of thing. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't trust eBay and the mail system and that sort of thing, you're going to be paying that markup. But if you trust in PayPal, like I have, and trust me, I've spent a lot of time with PayPal over the years, buying and adding to the collection. They usually, as long as it shows that it was shipped and you have clear communication and you read the item correctly, you know, as far as like, this is what the item is supposed to be, I ship it on X date, all that sort of thing. As long as you're careful about those sort of things, and let's say you don't receive the item, eBay's usually going to be in your favor. And if it's something extremely expensive, you know, make sure that they insure it for that, so they get their money back, you get your money back, depending on the situation. And if they are anywhere near you, you can do local pickup, but you're still going to save money compared to most retro stores. I walk into most retro stores today just looking for garbage. Literally. I'm serious. Complete garbage. I don't look for anything of value. I know I'm probably not going to find anything of value if I forgot. I don't have a bar for this one.
This is one of mine.
Okay. I know I'm not going to find anything of value. It's just, it's pointless. It's not going to happen. I just wanted you know to loosen the.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I've made the mistake where I've loosened it here and then, bing.
No, I gotta loosen up here first.
I love that clamp, so it keeps the bridge high.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. Anyway, this is just, you know, get some stuff done. I think maybe in the next video I have a bunch of Gundam models we can put together. If you guys like this. Anyway, I'll keep going. Like I said, it's just bullshitting.
Well, I also think that the shops, they kind of do it because, and I've experienced this, and I know you have too, that sometimes they have stuff in the shop that they just have there because they want that wow factor. Like, oh, they actually have a Sega CD.
God. I have a story for that one.
And I think it's just like they kind of overprice it because they don't want that to sell, but it gets you to come in there and look.
Absolutely.
And it's like, well, hey, if you are willing to pay that astronomical price for it, then it's like, oh, well, hey, you're making a shitload of money off of it for nothing.
Yeah,
Bad memories.
Yeah, so there's one shop in Venice. I forget the name.
I forget the name of it.
It's not Gameplay.
It's on Sepulveda.
It's on Sepulveda.
It's like Venice and Sepulveda, I think.
I wrote a Yelp review. If you go to Yelp and find this, you'll find my review on there from a couple of years ago. It's exactly what he talked about. They had a bunch of systems. He had a bunch of systems in the glass shells, and he wanted like beyond ridiculous prices. And it was obvious he wasn't trying to sell them. He had at the time I was looking for a Neo Geo CD. And he wanted like $700.
No, it was the Sega CD.
No. There was a Neo Geo also. That was the first thing I asked about. The Sega CD is what his assistant eventually sold to my friend Marco.
Oh, that's right, because you got that for your
Yeah.
birthday.
He wasn't supposed to sell it because it was broken. And he told me very much what Timmy said, that, I just have it there to attract customers. And he's the worst retro shop I've ever been to.
Especially when you use the price guide from another shop.
Well, that's happened a couple times. That's one thing I find insulting. So it's one thing to have high prices. It's another thing to open up a iPad, look up a price on Game Dude. Game Dude is another semi-local video game store.
It's a huge warehouse, and at least they're very reputable.
Yeah.
A bit overpriced, but reputable.
Overpriced, but reputable. But the problem is they have an online price guide, and I've had two different shops. One particular one in Sunland, which was just almost as bad. All of his inventory was super dusty. You could tell no one bought shit from this guy because his prices. And when I asked for, it was Steel Battalion. I hadn't owned it at the time. He had a Steel Battalion, and I was like, hey, so how much is Steel Battalion? And the guy, not the owner, but one of the workers said, it's $200. I'm like, dude, I will fucking buy it right now. $200 complete in the box. The box was good. I had never owned it at the time. I didn't know it was a shitty game. And he goes, yeah, $200, whatever. Great. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, yeah, let me just check with the owner, right? And he went to the owner, and then he pulled out this iPad and started looking on the fucking iPad. And then he goes, oh yeah, it's actually going to be $500. And I just fucking walked out. I was disgusted. And I left a review on his Facebook page. I'm good with that. I'll leave reviews when people are shit to me. That's shady as fuck. If I go into a game store and there's no prices listed, if you go to a game store and there's no prices listed, and they're doing it off the top of their head, usually it's a bad sign. And that happened in two very specific situations. Going back to the one in Venice. Talk about a shop that's completely unorganized, super dirty. Like, my hands were black from just going into bins and looking at his PS2 and Xbox games that were on the floor. You couldn't really step anywhere. I'm sure there was rat shit everywhere. I can't remember. It's been a long time. I just remember it being super filthy, and he was doing the same thing with the games, and he wanted these astronomical prices. And that has happened in a lot of places where I get in there and it's like, oh, well, how much is, I don't know, Pokemon Yellow? Which I have 2 copies, but let's say, how much is Pokemon Yellow? And they'll go, $70. No, I'm not paying $70 for a game I can get for $30.
I was going to say, actually, right now on GameStop, on their website, you can get it for $15.
But even still, and $30 with the battery already swapped,
Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that.
It's preposterous. Again, I know I've said it a little earlier, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I understand that game shops have to make a living. I understand that. But you're working with a commodity that already has a market, has already mostly established values, and can be purchased online for much cheaper than what I'm going into a store for. That's why Best Buy is suffering. How many people go to Best Buy and treat it as the Amazon showroom?
I was going to say, I have no reason to go to Best Buy anymore because, I'm one of those people who still buy physical music CDs. They don't carry them anymore.
Yeah, very little.
They just... No. They literally just stopped carrying them. They shipped out whatever didn't sell.
So does fries.
Yeah, so it's like... Now I honestly have no reason to go into a Best Buy. Their game selection usually sucks.
Yep.
I will admit, if I wanted to play the demo units, at least they have good demo units usually.
If I need a new game, sometimes I go there, but they also are not one to get a lot of stock, at least not the local ones.
No, well, yeah, but also it's like me, I like all those kind of obscure Japanese games, like the Idea Factory and NIS games.
Yeah, they don't have that.
They never have that shit. They may get one random game, because I think I did pick up one of the Sword Art Online games. But other than that, they never have shit. And it's like, as much as I hate GameStop, I'd rather still go there to buy any game than go there.
Okay, so I know Timmy's cleaning this guitar. I might as well talk a little bit about it. It is a Ibanez Prestige RG 1570.
J-Craft model?
No, it's not J-Craft.
Or
It's just Prestige.
no, it's a J something.
Well, it says custom J Shock, but it's not. It's not a proper J Shock custom. If you're not as
Into guitar.
into guitars, it's a Japanese model that was custom built, hand built when it was brand new. It was a very expensive guitar, and I got it for $300 some years ago at Guitar Center with their used section. That was before Guitar Center really pruned their used section. For a while there, I was going there and finding some good shit for a pretty good price, and now they got Wise, another market that's dying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they still have some really good deals on some stuff. Also, I like now that you can check their online inventory and you can buy it and they'll ship. Yeah. I've come really close to buying another NDM a couple of times because they have them on there for like $300.
I keep looking for an RG 550 from 1987.
I want a RG 420.
420.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing
I know.
with the fixed bridge.
Yeah.
But actually, the next one I really want to buy, because I want to finally have like a new guitar, because every guitar I've gotten is pretty much used, is I want a Talman 303M.
Oh.
Basically, it's the one with like the lipstick, the two single, like the Strat style with the lipstick, but then it's got like a extra volume over here. Because I know they discontinued most of the Talman line already, so I know that's going to be quick to end with the rest. But also I want to get one of those Talman basses also, because those they've already cut down. It didn't last very long, unfortunately.
So other facts about this guitar, the neck position is a Evo neck pickup that I actually pulled out of a Gem Junior
555
1997 Gem Junior, so it's proper Evo. That was when that guitar still had proper hardware. And the bridge position, I have a Tone Zone, which is my favorite pickup by DiMarzio. Both of them by DiMarzio. And surprisingly, in the middle position, I kept the original S1 pickup, which I love that fucking thing.
You know what? I have to say this is one of the few things on pickups we agree on. That is my favorite mid. I have the same one in my NDM paired up with the PAF you gave me. Mm-hmm. And paired up, they sound beautiful. It's nice and twangy. I love that thing.
It's like the best single coil, and I've...
I literally, any guitar that I get a mid for, I want to put that in there.
So he's cleaning it. Like I said, he's very good with especially the part that scares me is he treats the fretboard with oil, and I'm always afraid, lemon oil. I'm afraid I'm gonna always damage it.
Well, if anyone's interested, as far as like the polish goes, I really recommend this Music Nomad. I know you can't really see the label, but it's Music Nomad Pro Strength guitar polish. It's like a paste sort of. It's like waxing a car, but it really, really gives it that glass finish. And it lasts quite a long time too, so I really recommend that. I got that in a kit. I haven't tried the oil that one comes with, because lemon oil lasts a long time, and I really like the Dunlop 65 lemon oil for treating the fretboards. One of the things I come to find is if you take like an old, what do you call it?
Sock?
Yeah, well, an old sock, but the ones that go up to like your shin or whatever.
Ankle.
Whichever like athletic one. Just cut it off so you kind of get the elastic part. This way it's cloth, but it's kind of a little abrasive a little bit too, so you can kind of get in the pores. And it works really well for cleaning it, especially if you let it go like this one does.
Well,
hey, you tell me.
It's been a while. In fact,
it's
when I test it and show you guys, it's been a while since I played. I haven't had a proper amp in a while. I have a little practice one we're going to use. Lately, Black Star has been kind of my thing, although I want a 2x12 orange cab. Not an all-in-one, but I want that to be the speaker box. It's the cab itself. I'm not sure about the head yet. I'm thinking Mezza Boogie, but that's all in the future.
See, I just want a combo, but I want a Fender twin reverb.
good one of those.
It's like $1,500.
It would be pricey.
I'm talking about the reissue. I'm not talking about like a
Original.
vintage.
Well, that's your guitar minute. Just want to get some strings on this. The next guitar we're going to do is another special case, which I need to get a single coil for also. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. I mean, yeah, retro is just becoming so expensive, and I think the problem is going to be that the prices are probably going to stabilize, but they're going to stay high. They're going to remain high, and they're not going to fall. A lot of people who are joining right now and buying stuff and saying, "Oh, this is my first, retro console, and since who knows when, and where can I buy more?" and that sort of thing. Who are getting into the hobby. A lot of them are going to drop off when A, they find out how much it costs. B, they get their favorite game, because a lot of them, a lot of people didn't play like I did, buy a ton of games, and that was my life, as a child, was fucking games. A lot of them probably had one or two that they really remember really well, and once they get them, that's it. They'll be done.
It's like Marco and Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, basically. Where my PlayStation 1 library alone is bigger than most people's libraries ever were, at this point. And most of the ones I have for the PS1 most of my PS1 library is original, what I had growing up. As an adult, I bought a lot, but especially the classics, all the Final Fantasies. I'd like to do a video about how Final Fantasy 8 is garbage, because Final Fantasy 8 is garbage. And there's videos I'd like to do about, well, like I said, what constitutes retro. Best of the generations, potentially, that sort of thing. But this topic has really been bugging me, just as this year specifically has gone on. I've pretty much given up on being able to buy anything that I need at this point, at least for the collection, for any reasonable price. And really, that means I'll probably never get it unless I trade for it or I get lucky. The days of going to, swap meets and garage sales, a lot of that is over. People have gotten wise, I've been to a lot of them where, there's a couple swap meets I've been to where the games cost as much as the game shops.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, that's because it's like, everyone's got an iPad these days, and it's so easy to just have that outside with you, and like, how much is that? Oh, give me a second. And then
eBay.
Yeah.
That, or, people say, oh, yeah, you can get a lot of money for that, and now that's...
Yeah, well,
they can't, really.
That's that antique factor that they figure, oh, well, it's old, so there must not be a lot of them, and so...
It must be worse.
Yeah. I mean, oddly enough, and I know it's so... Here, I'm going to show you that. You can have that, my beautiful art. I don't know... Like, okay, we'll start off from the beginning with that again. I know it's kind of because of saturation and everything, but the one thing is, like, the one retro system that you could still get dirt cheap and get dirt cheap games and stuff for is the Atari.
Yeah.
And, that's... that's one of my favorite systems. I still have the 2600.
That's because the Atari is boring.
That's bullshit. I can play Asteroids all fucking day.
Boring.
And see, this is where we can get into that. What constitutes retro?
Well, no. It's retro. It's
no. But I mean,
it's like cave paintings by this point.
Yes, but I mean, to me, that is what retro is. I mean, the NES falls under it. The Super Nintendo's kind of there. The 64,
kind of there.
The
that is
graphically.
That is ridiculous.
No. Super Nintendo is retro. I'm not going to say that.
Jeez.
No, basically anything that's cart based, minus the handhelds. Well, I mean, like the 3DS. But you can still pick up Atari games dirt cheap. And granted, I get the Atari games because there's probably like 60 games for every one console that was ever made. That's how oversaturated the market was. But it's just kind of... And maybe it's also because there's so many of these re-releases, like with the flashbacks and the plug and play, stuff like that. But I still don't get why you can get a 2600 Atari for like $30 or less, depending. And peripherals are, old stuff like that. They never break. I mean, I've never had any trouble with my paddle controllers or the joysticks, and it's kind of like, well, why doesn't that have it? Even with like, okay, like I get like, him, and it's not his thing. He thinks it's boring, but like the older guys, you would think it would be a lot easier for them wanting to want that stuff, but it's not up there with everything else.
Well,
and I mean, I kind of find that sad, because it's like, one of the reasons why I like the Atari so much is because I like that they're all arcade games. They're all arcade games. It's kind of one of the reasons why I like the Dreamcast so much, is that every game on there is meant to be like the coin-op games and stuff like that.
Well, that was the design philosophy of the time. It was just
I know, I get that, and those are really some of my favorite games. I love the games that are arcadey. That's, I mean, one of the reasons why, like, if you ask me, like, what's your favorite shooter, I would say, like, House of the Dead, not like Call of Duty or anything like that. Even the older ones, before the all the saturation with Modern Warfare and all that bullshit that's ruining games these days. But again, that's another topic for another day. But I like the arcade-ish games. I like feeling like if I was sitting there in front of one of the cabinets and playing a game like that, like Metal Slug and stuff like that. And that's why I love the Atari games, because, Asteroids, like I said, I can honestly sit there and play Asteroids for hours. I've done it before where I've played Asteroids for like 5 hours straight. And granted, I'm still shit at pretty much every game. I'm not going to say, like, oh, I can get a high score or whatever. Or, I can get to level, like, past level 5 of Pac-Man. But, I mean, that is just kind of...
Why aren't you getting kill screens today?
Because I suck at the game, I'll admit it. I love playing Pac-Man, but honestly, if I get to level 12, that's a good day.
So when you were reading Ready Player One, the book, did you get all excited when he was...
Believe me, that's one of the reasons why I loved that book. I loved all the old arcade games.
Yeah, well, I got that.
And stuff like that. No, yeah, I'm actually rereading it right now. But no, honestly, that is one of the reasons why I really loved it, because it was all that classic, real classic arcade games, and like Centipede and Defender and all that. I really love those games. That's why, I kind of got excited when Atari announced that VCS.
That's going to be garbage.
Yeah, I admit it is probably going to be garbage, but I think it's probably going to be way better than any of the flashbacks came out, so I still want one, because it comes with, like, I think it comes with like 120 Atari games pre-installed.
It comes with a lot, but it's emulation.
It's emulation, but it has the paddle controller, because I've tried playing it on different things. Like, I've gotten so good at Asteroids I can play that on a mouse and keyboard, but I've tried playing it like on my phone and stuff. Like, it just doesn't work as well. I like playing it on the joystick, and that's why I like it has that. Every flashback controller that I've felt, they're kind of junk. They're very inaccurate. They're very super stiff. Like, every time I do it, it's like I have to, like, grip the bottom thing and, like, feel like I'm ripping it out just to try and get it to move. And you would think by now they could have perfected that.
No, it's all about cheap. They need to build cheap.
Yeah, no. High
volume.
Again, I get that, but I mean, that's why it's like I figure this is actually made by Atari. $300, it's high, but like I say, I'm a huge Atari fan. I love those games, and it's supposed to be able to do other things. It's HDMI, and
it's a Linux PC is what it is.
Yeah, and besides that, I mean, I really like the design of the console. It's got the 2600 aesthetic.
Well, visually it looks nice. I'm not going to deny that, but
yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, it's like I got excited for that. And then I seen the price tag, and I'm kind of like, well, that is kind of high for basically a flashback. But I will admit, I'm a sucker, and I do want one. I wasn't going to shell out I think it was like $400 or $500 for the wood grain.
Yeah, for special.
Yeah, I'm granted I would have loved to do that. I really would love to have that sitting next to my 2600, but I'm not going to fork out that much money for that. But I mean, I am still excited. I do hope it becomes something. I know it will never be a PlayStation, an Xbox, Nintendo, anything like that. But if it could even be something standalone, that would be pretty awesome in itself. But, I mean, until then, I mean, I'm still happy being able to buy dirt cheap cartridges, for my 2600. The flip side of that, where, like, for the Atari, that I think is kind of a little out there, is how much the new games cost for it. Granted, I mean, they're all homebrew, and they're homebrew. They have to like make the cartridges and everything else. I get that, but for some of them, like to be $70-$80 for a cart, especially some of them, it's just for the cart. That's not even like if you want a box, that's like another $20.
Yeah.
Because like one of the ones I really want to buy, and I know I'm going to eventually break down and buy, because I think there's this really famous Atari's website that sells a whole bunch of stuff. They have the Halo 2600 game, and I really want to buy it, and I think the game itself is like $35 now, but if you want the box, it becomes like $60.
You're basically talking about like New Age repos.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying, is like, you can buy...
It's a whole other topic.
You can buy original, like you can get Donkey Kong on it for $12, $13, but for something new that probably didn't take that much, it's kind of an astronomical price versus, you can get the classics for it, the best games for it, for dirt cheap.
Yeah. Well, the thing, at least, also with retro being, I mean, if we take this on the extreme side, you have some consoles that were expensive before and now are...
Well, like the Jaguar, the Neo Geos.
Well, even beyond that, I think the Sega Saturn is pretty much the worst console to collect for. The Sega Saturn, American games, even the shit ones, are $20, $20-$30, and depending what it is. I think the cheapest game you can buy is Daytona USA, and if you get, depending what version it is, even that's expensive.
I think actually the cheapest game for the Saturn is SimCity, because I think I got that for like $6.
No, but I mean like on average. SimCity is probably more expensive now since when you got it.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
Overall, and some of the ones that you probably do want, like your Street Fighter Alpha 2s, Marvel Superheroes, like those sorts of games, they're all a couple $100. The Street Fighter 03, which is a Japanese only Sega Saturn release, which is Alpha 3. In America, it only came out on the Dreamcast and PS2. In Japan, it came out on the Saturn originally. That disc alone was $350, and you can buy the actual CPS2 arcade hardware for $350. And if you're going to do that, you might as well get the CPS2 if you have somebody to hook it up to. Obviously, I do. The cabinets I showed in part of the video before. It's ridiculous. And, for a long time, people used to say, oh, just buy the Japanese version of the Saturn game. And most of my Saturn collection is Japanese, so, like the Clockwork games, I have both in Japanese. They were super cheap, where the American versions are super expensive now. And the one game that I do need to get at some point, and I don't know how, is Panzer Dragoon Saga, the RPG. That was $300 5 years ago.
I was going to say sell the house.
Yeah, I'd have to take out a fucking loan to get it now. And, speaking to the preservation's perspective, stuff like that, maybe I can understand, when it's so rare that getting a physical copy is nigh impossible. But when you're pirating Super Mario World, there's a problem. At least in my mind. I think that's just wrong. Unless you own the game. Unless you own the physical card already. Unless you own the console. And you say, well, why won't I just play it there? Well, then maybe you want to put it on a device that you take around with you, or maybe you want to put it on, I don't know, a Raspberry Pi, so you don't have to plug in your Super Nintendo every time. But at least you own the hardware. At least you own the game. You know, and I've gotten into some heated arguments with people where they're like, well, I don't, like preservation. I'm like, you are not preserving nothing. You are basically playing the game illegally. You know, if it was a case of, oh, we're preserving this game, there's no other way to play it. It's financially not feasible. There's no copies. The hardware doesn't exist anymore. That sort of thing. Then yeah, I can. That's a different story. But when there were a billion copies of a game that were released, and there's a way to actually do it, and you don't own it, and in a lot of cases people have never owned it, then no, that doesn't work. I'm sorry, that's just my opinion. You feel free to disagree with me in the comments below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people disagreeing with a lot of things I say, but that one kind of really irks me, especially as someone who collects. And I'm not hoarding. I'm not somebody who purposely owns multiple copies of a game, or I'm also not the type of person that doesn't open items, like where they leave things sealed. That's a whole different type of person. Every game in here practically
been played
at least once.
Whether we were just testing to see if it worked, or doing a video on it, or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've never gotten a game and said, "Oh man, I need to leave this in the box." There'd be very few exceptions. It'd have to be a very rare game, but I mean, there are people out there who buy multiple copies of whatever they can get their hands on, and just
well, so it's like I know a guy who has like copies of Pokemon in the box, sealed, and then he's got the copy he plays, and it's just like, okay, well.
I can kind of see that, but...
Well, I mean, that's the same thing, though. It's like, okay, well, there's one less copy in the world for someone to get because you want to have one that's in the box. I mean, it's not like that's saving the battery or anything. It's, it's tucked away. It's just, things are made and they're meant to be used. It's like...
And, I know that there's the other argument for the more educated people watching this video may put out is bit rot. I know bit rot's a thing. I know bit rot exists. And that's where the preservations aspect will come into play. But we're not there yet. I mean, there have been a couple of games, like a small percentage of games that have... and I haven't seen any like scientific proof that bit rot was involved. Where I've heard of Sega Genesis carts in some cases becoming unplayable, self-corrupting because of bit rot. Bit rot is a phenomenon where your games will become unplayable due to time and age, and there's a lot of mechanics involved with how memories written to the chips and degradation. Don't ask me, I'm not an expert, but I know that it's a factor. This goes for CDs as well. CDs being that CDs are really like a slow-moving sand because of glass or glass fiber, or something of that nature.
Well, I mean, they're plastic, and the way
warp.
data's stored on them, yeah, it's...
They're a slow-moving liquid of some sort, and eventually they'll be unplayable over time. Those are completely understandable things, but you own it. There's a big difference. If my copy of Tronbonne were to... No, Tronbonne's not a good one, because I know it's expensive, prohibitive. If my copy of Final Fantasy VII stopped working, right, and I downloaded a copy on the web to play it on an emulator, at the very least, I own the physical copy. I've owned it. I still have the original plastic. It may not be playable, but I have the original, and it just, that's my argument. It has to be balanced. It's not a cut and dry, oh no, don't do it. It's let's look at the game, let's look at the market, let's look at the availability, let's look at the cost. You got to get these factors involved, and you're going to say, well, that's, everyone's situation is different. And that's right. It will be, If you're a billionaire, you should not be pirating ROMs. that's just the way it is, unless it doesn't exist. There'd have to be an extreme case. Like, you want to play Thrill Kill, which is a PlayStation 1 game that was never released and canceled. Okay, I can see you downloading that. Or Propeller Arena. That was a game that was canceled because of 9/11 on the Dreamcast. If you download that, then there's no ethical problem there. Or, if there's really no games that don't have thousands of copies at least. But if it was something really, really short in supply that even you with your billions of dollars could not buy and get out of somebody, then I could see it. And if you're on the other side of the spectrum and super, super poor, I'm sorry. That's not fair to the people who worked and, paid for the item. It's just not fair. At least that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, everyone's got a different thing of ethics.
Ethics plays a big role here, absolutely. And again, people are not going to agree with it. People are going to say that everyone's situation is different, and I'm saying that is actually a big part of it. Every game and every person, their situation is different. It should be an internal thing. I think why should I have to explain to people how to be ethical?
No, you're actually doing that right now. So.
I know. It's just don't pirate shit if you have no other. If you have means to do it in another way.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I don't know. Kind of goes against the theme of what we're doing right now. It's like, okay, well, if you don't want them to pirate it, well, then the price of these games is going to be up and everyone's going to want to buy them.
Well, that's true, but then I also very, very acutely aware that most people are not going to buy it, no matter what I say, no matter what. It's just not going to happen. People are not going to buy the games.
Yeah, well, no one's going to buy them because, hell, most people, it's like, if you can pirate it, you can pirate it. And then most, kids that are playing games, they're probably, like high school or whatever, so they don't have jobs, they don't have money. Maybe their parents can't buy them the game, or they can't get them, or parents won't let them, so, it's their way of, the way they actually end up playing it is, they pirate it.
My biggest problem, I think, really, with that, and especially in that situation, is a lot of people who do that, a lot of the kids who do it, they just don't seem to understand that, right and wrong in some situations. They're almost proud of it. And then they're when you tell them, hey, look, you can get yourself XYZ for $10. Why don't you go that way? I always hear excuses like, well, the developer's not getting money. All right, fine. But you don't, you don't have, you didn't pay for it. I don't know. It gets murky. I'll admit, it gets murky. As far as retro being dead, and then, like you said, people will pirate because games are expensive. I'm fully aware of that. I'm fully aware that, I'm kind of shouting to the wind where I'm going to say, hey, don't pirate, but yeah, these games are super expensive. It's not meant to sound like an oxymoron, because in the way I know it kind of probably does a little bit, but I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's one of those cases where I kept collecting, and I got most of what I wanted in my collection. There are a few pieces, obviously, that I need. And I feel like, I paid my dues, I did the research, I kept up with it. And I feel like everyone else should be doing the same, or have done the same. And now everyone's coming into the hobby and raising the prices because, there's demand for it now. And stuff that I was saving for or considering, a lot of it's gone. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it up now. So yeah, I know my opinion's a little controversial. I know people are gonna disagree with it. Go ahead and put it in the comments below. I'm sure you'll disagree with me to some extent. But I think the main fact is buying retro games, especially ones you really want, the cheaper days are over. I mean, it's really come to stay. The price has gone up, and I really don't think it's going to go down. I can't see it happening. It's going to be a case of, people will drop off. The games will remain high priced, maybe not as high as they are now, but still much higher than they were even a couple of years ago. And then there'll be a renaissance. They'll get another group of people, maybe when they turn 40, who will do the same thing. There'll be little fluctuations, but all it's going to do is raise the price as the games age, as they become harder to find, as games get ruined for various reasons because of time and history. That's all the future of this hobby, and this is the worst time for you to get into it is right now. You bought a NES Classic, and you're getting into it, and you're finding out a game that I might have paid $2 for a year ago, 2 years ago. You're looking at paying $30 for, and worse. And that's the reality of trying to be a retro gamer today. Now I know some of you will say, "Oh, well, there's always deals and whatever." I know of one particular person that I've never met her, but she came into the arcade scene fairly recently, and then started collecting retro games fairly recently. And I think she's within the same age range. And it was a case of she wheels and deals and talks to people and gets them down. But your average person who doesn't have that kind of time, your average career person who just wants to buy a couple things, maybe play it a couple hours a weekend, every couple months maybe, or every couple or weeks or whatever, they're not going to have that kind of time and energy to do it. They're not going to be dedicated to it. I'm dedicated to it because, this is my identity in a big way. I don't like the term gamer. I really hate that. I hate to be classified into that. I think what I do and what I've collected and what I do with the channel or have done.
I just don't think gamer means what it used to anyway.
Yeah, I don't like being lumped into that. It's almost a stigma. People are gonna.
Gamer used to be a stigma. Now it's a trend, and it's just like, well, anyone that plays Call of Duty or streams on YouTube is a gamer.
Yeah,
and it's just like, if you grew up in the time we did, it's like gamer was a stigma. That was a bad thing because it was like, oh, well, you don't go outside, and all that. And nowadays it's just like, oh yeah, everyone's a gamer. 2-year-old's a gamer. And then it's like, oh, well, what games do you play? Call of Duty. What else? Call of Duty 2. It's kind of like gamer is someone who they wanted to play the platforms. They wanted to play the different genres. They wanted to sit and put 200 hours into an RPG. They didn't. Finding the Easter eggs wasn't an achievement. It was, just a cool thing you found.
Goal of the game.
Yeah, I mean, hell. I mean, and this is probably where it kind of went downhill. But like, the first time we found skulls in Halo was like, oh fuck, this is awesome. Now it's like, oh well, find all the skulls and it's an achievement. It's like, okay, well, they're in the game. It's not something that was actually hidden.
I mean, there's still people out there much younger than us that have that
have that appreciation, but it's far and few between.
Yeah, and like I said, it's a bit of a stigma, and I don't like it. I don't like being labeled under that because I think we're in a different, for lack of a better term, class than that. And not in an elitist way, more of a, there's people who play games, and then there are people who live it. And it's a very, very clear-cut distinction. And living it, I mean really living it. Just because you buy every PlayStation 4 game doesn't mean you're living it. When your entire life revolves around it, when your entire career revolves around it, when most of your entire pop culture and, when you're entirely infused with it, then you probably can understand. But if you play games a lot,
It's not just you get home, you decompress on Call of Duty, and you wear a shirt that says gamer. It's more of you actually have to have that appreciation of what it was, what it could be, and just generally, it's just like I said. I mean, it comes down to the people who they go home, they play Call of Duty, and they buy every new version of that game. But if you ask them, oh, well, what other games do you play? Maybe they say Madden, and it's just like, that's not a gamer. That's just, you play a game. You should be, Call of Duty or whatever term you could come up with.
Fortnite now.
Or Fortnite, yeah. I mean, it's just like, okay, great, you play a game, but that doesn't make you a gamer. I mean, you're not chomping at the bit like me waiting for 15 years for fucking Final Fantasy 15, and the Final Fantasy 7 remake, how pissed off you got that it wasn't at E3.
PlayStation E3 was a waste.
And it's just like, that dedication to it, that dedication that they're always saying, oh, to all of our dedicated fans. Well,
your dedicated fans are fucking waiting still.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just what it is. The term gamer means nothing these days.
You gotta put more tension on those, right, before you drop it.
You do? Well, that's what I was gonna let you do that, because I don't know how. I'm not good with Floyd Rose.
Okay.
And I don't want to over tighten them and then they bust.
No, you should tune them just a little under standard tuning.
So
okay,
when
you drop it,
okay.
It goes.
Well, the other part of that is when I tune, I use a tuner. I don't have perfect pitch or whatever you fucking have. So that's on you. This is why
I've been a musician almost my entire life.
Yeah, this is also why I play fixed bridge, because I don't like these bullshits.
I would actually block this one if it was easy. Because I don't use it on this one.
Yeah, that would be hard. That'd be a lot of epoxy. You'd have to find a tone wood.
There's a way to do it with a brass block, but I just...
Yeah, but that's the thing is... I don't know if you can brass block a Floyd Rose, can you?
You can.
I know you can do it.
There's a way of doing it where it blocks it and then it becomes a fixed bridge.
Oh, so I know you can do it with like Strat trends, but that would be a lot of work.
And they use brass because it resonates more when it's putting a lump of wood in there or something that kills the tone.
Well, I was gonna say there you find a tone wood that matches.
Yeah, I just use brass.
But I mean that's where it's hard to find a tone wood.
It adds weight too.
Yeah.
This is my favorite guitar. It's the best guitar I've ever played in my life.
I admit I really like this one. For not liking Floyd Rose bridges, I do like this one.
It's more than that.
But... Well, yeah. I mean, I besides the setup on it, like the actual ball ends sticking into them, and then kind of the spring-loaded, kind of blocks on it.
Yeah.
I really do love this one, because I really do not really like Floyd Roses. I mean, I like what you can do with them, even though I can't do shit with them. Also, I like this one because they go really deep through. So, I'm one of those people who believes that through body stringing gives you a lot more sustain. That's why most of my guitars are all 3-body stringing.
That's so bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know. My guitars tend to be kind of proof of it, but yeah, no. I mean, me, I prefer fixed bridge. I think I only have 2 guitars with trends. I have that Strat and which I think that's it. My V's 3-body, my Talon's 3-body. Oh no! My other the Talon that I just got, that one has a trem bridge, but I already decked it. Matter of fact, I have an extra spring. I had to go buy it. It's like the first thing I did.
Well, everyone, I think we're going to call it here for the first of these sessions. Please keep your discussion in the comments civil, otherwise I'm just going to delete it. I mean, you can disagree with me. I expect many will. But let's keep it civil. And if you like what we've done here, we can do another one. I still have other guitars that need to be done, but it's getting late, and I have work tomorrow.
I also have work tomorrow.
So we're going to call it here. Please subscribe. Let us know what you think. And coming up next is it tuned and just a little bit of playing so you can hear what it sounds like on the practicing. Thanks for watching. Okay, that's good.
Still better than the last time I played after a while.
The note that I got. I don't want to cut it yet because it'll cut the tension.
Well, as you say, don't ask me where the wire cutters are because I don't know where you left them.
I don't know. Still tuning at the same time. I need to start practicing again. Alright, everybody. Thanks for watching.